Well, it's still Plus TV Africa, and we are on the home stretch of the election studios. Nigeria decides. President Buhari has been announced the winner, of course, we know by now, of the presidential elections, but he has a lot ahead of him to resolve, like the release of Leah Sharibu, insurgency in the north, of course, political violence in the south, and of course, the list is endless. And we still have in the studio Olaoluwa Anifaloyin. He is a political realist. I like that one. And we also have Babashola Adegbuyi. He's a governorship aspirant of the YPP in Ogun State. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming back.
Thank you.
Now, let's talk about the way forward. President Buhari has a big, huge task ahead of him. When he got into office, he campaigned on the platform of insecurity, trying to make sure that he brings back security. He talks about rejigging the economy, and he also looked at the economy. But looking at the economy and all of the things that he talked about so far, has he been able to deal with it? I mean, I've heard people in his administration say, oh, the PDP had 16 years to do what they did, and we've just been 3.5 years. Why do you expect us? How do you expect us to accomplish all of this? What do you think the president needs to start or hit the ground running with, first things first, as soon as he's re-sworn back into office?
First and foremost, we need to have this understanding that when politicians are campaigning, they can say anything for them to win the vote of the people.
That includes you, because you're running for an office.
Yes.
Okay.
It includes everybody.
Okay.
For them to win the vote. Now, for me, before I can talk about what he has to do, let's first of all ask the president what he promised us in 2011. Hasn't been able to achieve any. As far as I'm concerned, I'll still give him less than far below average on those the promises he made.
Why?
In 2011. For example, the fighting of corruption. Well, for me, the corruption is still more in the system than before. That's number one. Number two, creation of employment. Instead of more employment, a lot of people lost their jobs. Number three, the security. Yes, on the aspect of security, they are claiming that during Jonathan's administration, that Borno, for example, the Boko Haram nearly got more than, let me say, 3/4 of the total local government in that place that time. But nowadays, I can't hear of any local government being occupied by the Boko Haram. I would say to an extent. But the issue of the X-Men that came up along the line that the president kept mute, because he never said anything about the X-Men throughout the 4 years that is ending by May. So that of insecurity is also an issue for me. Then, for example, the Lee Shuaibu.
Yeah.
Now, for almost, it's over a year now that the lady has been in the camp of the Boko Haram, and up to now, we are not hearing the efforts the government has been putting in place to secure the release of that girl from the Boko Haram. So, for me, the government still has a lot to do. But personally, I would say, immediately the government comes in, even before the government comes in, since it's still the same person that is occupying the position, the government should think about one thing that is very important, that is human development. If we are able to solve the human development, I believe insecurity reduces.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate, not necessarily because I work for the president or anything, but then they would tell you in their defense during this campaign season that they have trader money. They have, other empowerment schemes that, in their words, would be some form of people development.
When I'm talking of human development, I'm not talking of you giving them money for trading.
Okay.
I'm talking of you training the people, build the people. Education is very, very important. What level are we in the education sector?
ASUP is on strike.
ASUP is on strike? ASUP is on strike. I don't know if what level, if we are to rank the universities, where are we? That's number one. Number two, what level are we in the health sectors? I remember the first lady was complaining of the National Hospital, the Asoro Clinic,
yes,
not having common injection. Meanwhile, billions of budgets every month are being allocated to that particular clinic every year. Sorry. Now, The health sector, what are you doing about it? We need to do something about this too. Education. Someone said, take away everything, give me education, I will cover everything. Education is more important than anything.
Talking about statistics, Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children as at 2018 ending into 2019. So our education, of course, is nothing to write home about.
Nothing to write home about. Nigeria, with the number of resources we have, human resources we have, we should be at par. At least in Nigeria, we should be talking about 99% literacy. But we are far, far, far below that. The government should do something about how to encourage people go into the young ones going back to schools, people using their initiative to invent, support students who are ready to give their best to the country, sponsor students, let them also try as much as possible, maybe start something that the people from outside the country can even come back to Nigeria and learn from.
I want to take you on something before I go to Mr. Olaoluwa. I'm just wondering, you're saying education. Could the reason also be that government is putting its hands everywhere, it's stretching itself a bit too thin, hence the reason why it's not as productive as we want it to be? I went to a public school, and at the time we went to school, missionaries were in charge of schools, and it was a lot better. And now I go back to that school years later when the government has taken over. It's tacky, and then the missionaries take it back over, and then it becomes a great school. So maybe our government needs to step back in terms of education and let the universities run themselves, like it's done abroad. And they just get people to sponsor, and companies, instead of government trying to do everything, especially in education.
Actually, you are right in respect of the government putting its eggs into different baskets, trying to achieve everything. But like I always tell people, if it's even a single one that you will achieve as a government, that will be significant, that people will know that, oh, this one was actually done by the government. Do it. You don't need to have 20 agendas. Going about trader money, market money, farmers money, to me, is a waste of resources. Give them the best training. I can tell you, the little you give to them will bring about multiple income, even that the country will benefit from.
All right. Back to you, Mr. Olaoluwa. Where do you think the president or the presidency has to start from? The APC-led government, they have been in power, obviously, and they're going to be continuing. Now, one of the problems that Nigerians have pointed to as being the reasons why we have not necessarily developed at a rapid speed is government not being a continuum, because my party left and your party comes in, we literally start all over again. So it seems like we're just running around in circles. Where do they need to pick up from?
We appreciate the fact that Buhari had won the election. And it is really time for them to stop politics, stop the politics, and give good governance to the people. We hope first, it is time. Buhari should not take as much as it took the previous time for him to make his appointments. First, we want to see, he needs people who would be able to rally around him and do good work. And they shouldn't come and play politics with appointments.
Do you even see him doing a reshaping of the government, or maybe he might just still want to keep with some people who have maybe necessarily done good work where they are serving? Are there any such people in this government?
Definitely there would be a reshaping of the government. I expect that, because obviously they would have seen some. And they would always politicize it and say this person did not contribute much during the campaign time, during this and that. But what we are saying now is that they should not take delivering the dividend of democracy that they had enjoyed to the people. They should not politicize it. It's appointments. I have always believed that you don't really need a president, as in the #1 person, to be extremely sound. But when you have people that are surrounded by you, well, that surrounds you, when you have sound people and capable hands surrounding you, you will see that you will be able, your government, your deliveries would be very fine. So let's start with appointments. we are not expecting Buhari to start making politics about the appointment this time. At least he had the first time, and the second time he had come in. Now let him come and do his political appointments very well. Then also there is an issue of integrity. The integrity that we have known him to be is claimed zero tolerance for corruption. We need that this time around. We cannot say that the Buhari presidency had not done a fight against corruption, but there are elements of politics in the fight previous time.
You're saying it has been a bit lopsided.
Yes, definitely. Everybody, is known in the public that yes, there had been some elements of politics in the fight against corruption. We think this time around now, at least I am thinking personally, now the president is not looking for another term again. There is no longer third term. So when they are talking about the next level, we want a next level that yes, everything is written. This is, yes, I am a person, I have zero tolerance for corruption, and now we want that. We want to see that. When we see that, yes, this man is not being lopsided about his fight against corruption, then yes, Nigerians will say, yes, this is what we expect him to do.
Babashala, a lot of people have, just to buttress what he's saying, a lot of people have said that they were hoping that the President Buhari would, being that he has nothing to lose, would come in, damn the consequences, and fight corruption to its barest minimum. In other words, not afraid to step on toes. But as he rightly said, maybe because he was eyeing a second tenure, he was a bit soft on the people. Do you see this fight against corruption helping us economically? Because again, people have said, we've seen so many hashtags, bring back our corruption, bring back, because the economy just kept, tightening its belts again and again and again. How do we see all of these acts of President Buhari somewhat amounting to a rejigged economy, a healthier economy, safe spaces in schools, safe environments for the people in terms of security, and of course, business is booming because again, our ease of doing business index, we're nowhere close to the top.
Yeah, people need to understand something, that Nigeria for a very long time we have been living on corruption. A lot of people, government officials that have stolen from the National Treasury, that yes, some have been caught, some are yet to be caught, have been using that particular money for money laundering, which of course is feeding most of these people we are talking about that are unemployed. Now, for the failure of the government in these past 4 years, that is ending by May, to fight corruption, to me, I'm not seeing anything better coming up in this. Yes.
You're not hopeful in any way?
I'm not hopeful. Because the president has actually shown to us that it is better for you to fight corruption on the other side than for you to fight corruption here. What do I mean? Fighting the opposition. By 2023, they'll be telling the president also, Mr. President, if you step on toes, if you arrest these people, there is a high possibility that APC will lose the election. No. And we also have a rethink that is true. So what has been happening for the past 4 years is just, as far as I'm concerned, just exposure of opposition. The question is, how many people have actually been prosecuted? How many have been convicted?
Sent to jail.
You get. So, and when we talked about you coming up with a special court that will handle corruption cases, up till now, nothing has been done in respect of special court for that. Now, in this coming administration, the government, the only thing that can save the government is just one. For now, I've not seen any allegation against anybody using the state treasury or national treasury to sponsor this particular government. You get, unlike in 2015, When there were allegations that the Rivers State government actually used the Rivers Treasury, Lagos State used the, a lot of, so in this 20, because I remember him coming out to say, do not use government money to sponsor. So if that is the case, there is a very small possibility, but I'm not hopeful that the corruption will be fought the way people expect it.
All right, in closing, Mr. Olaoluwa, as Nigerians, because we know that government is not necessarily just about those who lead, but of course the led, how should we position ourselves to be able to hold this government accountable and maybe one way or the other help them to do the job that we have put them in there to do?
That's a very serious one. Yes. I think it is really time that Nigerians should speak up. Nigerians need to speak up. You see people during time, the problem more we have in Nigeria is that we tend to be more into the political part of government, the politics rather, than talking about the dividends of governance. So now you can see during election, you see a normal young Nigerian, both old, young, they come out and they talk, vote this person, no, and you hear their voice. You hear people come out and talk, vote this is this. But when it comes to we requesting, demanding that, yes, this is what by right, by law you are supposed to do, we don't speak up.
Why do you think what's the reason for that docility when it comes to demanding for dividends of democracy?
A lot of reasons might be for it, and sometimes we appear not to even know what our rights are. Sometimes we appear not to know what our rights are. And also sometimes you see some people that some people are biased about this person is our person. We should not open up. We should not open up the lapses. We should not talk about where he's not getting it right, or it is my party that is ruling. I should not talk about the lapses of my party. But first, before you become a member of a political party, you are first a Nigerian. So we should always get that. If we are saying, yes, we want this person, we should want them for a reason. We want them because we want them to deliver to us. The reason why we are not voting in Party A is because we think that, oh, this party is too corrupt. This party, well, I don't want to vote Party B because the party, the rulers from the parties are not sound economically. But now it is time for us to speak up first. Let us speak up. When Nigerians begin to speak up, and when Nigeria begins to speak up, we will see that things will change a little.
Same question for you, Babashala. How do we hold our government accountable, including you? If you win, we have to hold you accountable. We have to hold on to the words that you served these people while you were running for office. How do we begin to gain those dividends if we do not ask the necessary questions? And where do we start?
Number one, the opposition party has that right too. Just like it was mentioned by the lawyer, Jide Ologun. Opposition party has a responsibility. That's number one. Number two, the people also. Just like he mentioned, most people don't have that knowledge. Or let me say, they do have, but most of them are scared. Most of them are sentimental. Even sometimes ethnocentrism sometimes plays a role, and they don't want to. So people need to understand something. If we fail to fight, if we fail to seek for our rights, we are the one that will eventually face the consequence at the end of the day. The truth is this. You know what the government, what is required of the government or the person in power. You know what is, if the government is not doing it right, speak out. Don't limit it to social media. Like I will always say that, don't limit it to social media. If there is a need for you to notify or write a letter to the National Assembly, even sometimes organize rally, protest to National Assembly or to the federal government, do it. But before that can be done, the people are needed to be trained, to be reorientated. They needed to be reorientated. Why? Because most people, most Nigerians, they are somehow timid in doing what is expected of them to do. We can rant on social media, but tell them how. It's just like someone saying, if I see that guy, I will beat him. Let us go. On getting there, you see the guy, you're on the way. You get my point? So we should be ready to take our responsibility in our hands.
All right. Thank you so much, Olaoluwa Anifaloyin. He is a political commentator. Thank you very much, Babashola Adebuyi, governorship aspirant, YPP in Ogun State. It's been an interesting conversation. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed as we go into this new administration, I guess. Thank you so much for being here, gentlemen. Well, that's all for Nigeria Decides tonight. Join us again tomorrow evening as we continue to talk for development. I am Mary Anna Cohn. Good night.